Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bitter Rivals podcast. This is episode 118, powered by 91N. I'm your host, Avery, along with co-host Gitano Gallo. As always, we will start this one off, as we always do, with a little bit of Leafs chatter. So there's been obviously a lot to talk about. Underrated storyline for me. Ryan Reeves has found a place in the lineup. He seems to have a little bit of legs. He's forechecking. He's got a couple fights in the last couple of games. That's big to see. Obviously, we traded for former Leaf Ilya Lyubushkin. We'll talk a little bit about that. Boosh. Yeah, boosh. We'll talk a little bit about that. And yeah, we talked last week a little bit about the lineup change, moving John Tavares down to 3C and Max Domi up to 2C. A little bit quicker to play with William Nylander and Tyler Bertuzzi. Tyler Bertuzzi has had a week. Tyler Bertuzzi has been scoring. That's been really nice to see. Not only the hat trick, he's gotten some since then, so that's been awesome. Yeah, Nick Robertson has been sent down. Calle Järnkrok has come back up, so we'll have a little discussion about what is going to happen with Nick Robertson, how we see his season playing out. We'll get started with the Lyubushkin trade, I guess. So the Lyubushkin trade was a 2025 third, and that was to the Ducks for retaining 50% of Lyubushkin's salary as well. So you have to pay for that. We understand that. But then they also paid a 6th round pick to the Carolina Hurricanes to retain an additional 50% of the remaining salary.
So 25% of his total, yeah.
Yeah, so 25% of the total. So the Leafs are only paying him 25% of his contract, and I believe he is a UFA at the end of the year. Is that correct?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah.
The Leafs also got the rights to some other forward in this as well, but I don't think that's of any real significance for them.
Yeah, Kirill Slepets in the deal.
Yeah.
So not a significant haul going the other way, but like Ilya Lyubushkin, if you're a stats guy, has been one of the worst defensemen in the NHL this year. I don't think that's really all it's about. It's about adding a body in a position of need, and that's actually what Brad Treliving said, word for word. I don't know if giving away all these picks is really the strategy. I do understand, though, especially with what the team has given us lately in terms of pretty big hot streak here. Like, I believe they were on a 7-gamer, they lost, and then they've won 2 since. Is that correct? I'm forgetting.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot there, but I know they've been winning quite a bit recently.
Yeah, they won. Yeah, so they're 9-1 in their last 10.
Yeah.
So your team gives you that. Of course, you want to bolster it. It's just that this team's been getting bolstered for years, and it seems that those picks just lead to no playoff success, which is the whole point of the bolstering, right? So
yeah.
Obviously, Ilya Lyubushkin in a nutshell is not worth a 3rd and a 6th. We understand that. But Ilya Lyubushkin at 75% retained, I can see why the trade was made. You know what I mean? Because that also, and this is also what Brad Treliving said, which is newsworthy, is that also allows him to have a little bit more flexibility going into the trade deadline to make another move if he wants to. We do have a 1st-round pick to trade. We have prospects. I don't think we should give up any prospects for anything that isn't like a first-line player.
Yeah, like a major, yeah.
Yeah, like that's just silly. Yeah, and that's a good pivot there, because I kind of want to talk about what happens with Nick Robertson now that Calle Järnkrok is in the lineup. Bobby McMahon ain't going anywhere. Matthew Nyes ain't going anywhere. Kampf is going to be there in the playoffs. Reeves, I don't know if he'll play, but he'll be there. I think Nick Robertson, and the reason he was sent down is because him and Nyes are the only waiver-exempt players on the team. So it had to be one of them, and Nyes ain't going anywhere. To activate Järnkrok, one of those two things had to happen. So does that make Nick Robertson expendable at the trade deadline? Is kind of where I'm going with this. And I would say that you have to entertain that thought, just because you don't really know where that guy fits into your lineup right now. You know?
And he's had, like, maybe not sustained chances, but over the last, 1.5, 2 seasons. He's like had some decent opportunities and really still hasn't nailed down that spot that we kind of thought he would a couple years ago.
Exactly. When he was leading the OHL in scoring a few years ago, you were hoping for a lot more than what we've gotten from him. And there have been injuries. Like he's had the injury bug through the entirety of his Leafs career. And that sucks for him. And that's part of the reason that he's still waiver exempt. But it is what it is. And I do, if there's going to be somebody that's moved out, I would think that he would have to be high on the chopping block for Brad Treliving right now. Just so many circumstances involved with that. I don't know exactly what he's worth either, which kind of sucks, but
well, yeah, because if he kind of plays to his potential, like you'd think he'd be worth a lot more, but he just hasn't shown that. You don't know if, has he hit his ceiling in the NHL? Like, and the injuries problem too is not great for him.
Exactly. Yeah, no, those are two circumstances of his that are definitely going to affect his value at the trade deadline. So, I don't know what a move with him moving out looks like. He's not on a big contract or anything. It's nothing, there's no hindrances there. It's more just what is it? Does he carry any value, or is it just a contract moving out kind of thing? Yeah, so that's what I see. That's what we know about the Leafs trade deadline. They've been pretty quiet about what their plans are, right? And there were a lot of people that did not like that Lyubushkin move, but I understand it. It sucks to see him get hurt last night. Let's put it that way. And that's a good pivot into last night's game. So last night's game was a very, very competitive game. The Rangers are hot, hot, hot. I hadn't paid attention to their last two, but last I remember, they were on a 10-game heater.
They're 8-1-1 in their last 10 since last week.
Okay, so there you go. That's a pretty hot team, and that was a very competitive hockey game. Ilya Samsonov stood on his head. You got to give credit where credit is due. We thought this guy was cooked. Like, we were writing this guy off. Everybody was writing this guy off. The team had put this guy on waivers. Anybody in the league could have had him if they were so pleased. Had a contract that was given to him by an arbitrator at the beginning of the year, by the way. It wasn't like a massive overpay for what we thought he was going to be. If you had any thought that you could have brought him out of the dark place that he was in, you probably are kicking yourself in the ass right now for not picking him up on waivers. If you're a team that's looking for goaltending,
Edmonton Oilers.
Edmonton Oilers, the Carolina Hurricanes is another team that's looking for goaltending, right? Like, they must be kicking themselves in the ass right now because he's under $4 million. I think he's like 3.5, and like playing lights out right now. He's now 10-1-1 in his last 12. Played unbelievably last night. Made a save in overtime, dude. Like, just save, like the best save he's made all year. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a save of the year contender, easy. Like,
yeah,
it's
the sliding
top 3, like,
save. Like, oh my god, unbelievable stuff from him. But yeah, that was a big story last night. Obviously, Rempe's hit on Lyubushkin, and then Reeves repeatedly challenging him until finally getting a dance at center ice at the Scotiabank Arena. That was an electric fight. Don't really think Rempe should be taking that fight, but
I think it's one of those things now, like, because if he doesn't take that fight, then like his reputation isn't. That's what this is. As these young players coming up, they kind of, it's same as Jack and Cassian a couple years ago. Like, you have to step up when that older veteran player challenges you. You have to.
Yeah, well, that's like I was saying earlier on the opening. Ryan Reeves has really turned around his game, and he actually looks like he's a viable fourth line player in the National Hockey League right now. He's forechecking. We know he's not a big offensive player, but he's making hits. He's fighting. He's firing up the team. He's firing up the crowd. It's exactly what you want.
A presence.
Yeah. That's what we signed. That's what Brad Treliving thought he signed when he signed him, and that's what we're getting now. And it's really nice. I don't know. I'm not saying that he's going to be anywhere near a playoff roster. I'm not saying that. He might be, but that's not where I'm going with this. What I'm saying is right now he's doing his job, and it's great to see because it was he had lost a lot of confidence throughout the first couple of months of the season, and he was taken out of the lineup, and he really jumped at the opportunity when he was put back in, and it's good to see. But anyway, part of this was his fight with Rempe last night. Do you have anything to say about this fight?
Two things. First of all, Rempe looks like the guy you make on like NHLB Pro mode, who's like 6'8" and just beats the shit out of everyone. Like, and kind of with that, I've never seen someone make Ryan Reeves look small. Like Ryan Reeves looked tiny in that fight. Like that was
just not a small guy.
no, far from. Like even when he fought Jack to start the season, like those are two big guys. But like you see that they're two big guys. Like that was Rempe fighting a child. It looked like, and it was just insane to see.
Yeah. Well, what did we say? He was 6'7", 240?
Something like that. It's just fuck.
Just absurd. Just an absolute unit. 6th round pick. I would advise him to probably take it easy because he's not gonna have many brain cells left if he continues to get punched in the head by the toughest guys in the National Hockey League every night. I get it. He's one of them. We understand that. But the toughest guys in the hockey league, even they don't fight every single night. And we need to take her easy here, Rampy. I know you're trying to.
I would say it's very similar to Jack when he came into the league. And I hate that I keep going back to this, but like the first stretch was he fought everyone, and now you're seeing it in his game where he's not fighting less, but he's picking his fights a little better.
Yeah. And that's, because, dude, even did you see the kid's face?
Oh my God. It looks like
it's entirely purple.
Yeah. I was gonna say it looks like he just has been been used as a punching bag in like a gym for a couple weeks now. Like it's not great.
No, it's not good, and that's basically what he has been doing. Unbelievable. Anyway, that's pretty much all I had. Am I forgetting anything about the Leafs? Obviously, Austin Matthews continued to score goals.
And Domi, you want to bring that up?
Yes, that has continued to work, and it seems like Nylander's benefiting from it. It seems like Domi's benefiting from it. Tavares is really benefiting from it. He started scoring 5-on-5, which is nice to see. He had another one last night. I forget if it was a power play or 5-on-5 goal, but anyway, he scored again last night, which is great for him. And I also again, this is not taking anything away from Nick Robertson. I really like that line of Bobby McMahon, John Tavares, and Calle Yarncroke. That has to be one, that's got to be the best third line in the Leafs have had, that I can remember. Actually, right? John Tavares centering Calle Yarncroke, who is a very good Swedish hockey player, and then Bobby McMahon, who has really come into the league just guns a-blazing. So that I'm really liking for everybody involved. I think the lineup is perfect the way it is right now. Bertuzzi, it's lit a fire under. I think Bertuzzi and Domi playing together is perfect. I think they're really good buddies. I think and I think the chemistry really carries over on the ice for those two. So that's been awesome to see. And just Joseph Woll came back. That is almost completely glazed over that. So Joseph Woll came back. He had a good start in a win against the Arizona Coyotes. He played well. So to have two good-looking goalies right now, knock on wood, but things are good right now. Things are really, really good right now and comfortable. And yeah, I'm happy. I'm a happy Avery. That's about all I have coming out of Leafs land right now. I don't want to say too much. So
I would say a happy Avery on the show. That's the first time this season, just about, eh?
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
All right. Well, if we can talk about the Montreal Canadiens for right now.
Let's do it.
It's funny. They're 2-6-2 in their last 10, but have probably been playing their best hockey of the year in terms of just the actual effort and kind of the results. Well, not the results, but you know what I mean. They look like they're playing well. We've had a pretty tough stretch, especially this week, having Tampa and Florida. But again, taking them both to shootouts, losing both, but looking really good doing it. It's a lot of guys kind of making their case for either being traded or not being traded. It's some of those guys are looking to, secure moves. Some of those guys looking to, cement their spot in, the Habs' future here. The big one, Jake Allen's played great his last couple starts, which bodes well for him and the Habs, because obviously winning games is great, but also if we can get him, shipped to an Edmonton or a Carolina, someone looking for that goaltending, that would be ideal, because he's one of the few goalies on the market right now. And yeah, so it's been like not a totally terrible week for Montreal. And yeah, that's about it. Nick Suzuki's kept his role going. He was only behind Austin Matthews in terms of goals scored in the month of February. Set career high already for goals. He's like just under being a point a game player, which is so annoying because we have a $20 bet that you said that he will never be a point a game player. And now he's sitting at like 0.95 like points per game, and it's gonna fucking kill me that he's gonna finish this season on like 81 points. It's gonna break my heart.
What's he at right now?
I will pull it up right here. But he has just been unbelievable right now. He is currently at 59 points in 61 games. Like he's just under. But yeah, 24 goals, 35 assists. Yeah, he's like just on the brink of becoming that like elite centerman that we assumed that he would be. Yeah. So that's just great to see. Slaps looked really good alongside him this little stretch. Even though the goals haven't been coming for Caulfield, he's been playing well. So yeah, it's nice to finally see a bit of result and a little bit of something that's going to like move forward. It's been good.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting deadline for you guys, like you said. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys can do. Honestly, like what I do have to say is the one move that you guys have made up to this point back in January with the or was it January? It was February 2nd, sorry. That Monahan deal, like we know that was a great asset. Like that was just great asset. I can't think of the word. Management. That's the word.
Yeah.
That was just a great move by the Habs front office. So I'd like to see them do a little more because I'd like to see these shows get a little bit more interesting. You know that?
Like really,
like these Habs segments get a little bit more.
I know.
Bit more to talk about.
Hopefully next week we will, because I assume at least I've got to assume one of the goalies is going. And then there's a couple guys like I mentioned last week, Anderson, Armia, Savard, that have looked really good. David Savard was a little emotional after the last home game because that potentially could be his last home game, and as a Quebec-born player, that's always a little more special for them. But yeah, do you want to shift it to the trade bait board?
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. So, obviously, Calgary's already been active. They've made their trade of Tanev. So Tanev is now a Dallas Star. Did we talk about that last week? Was that on last week's episode?
No, this only happened. Was it Wednesday night?
Wednesday night. You are correct. Okay. So, yeah, it was Chris Tanev goes to the Dallas Stars. Artem Grushnikov, apparently he's just a big body defenseman. 2024 second and a conditional 2026 third. Flames retain initial 50% of Tanev's salary. Devils received a 2026 fourth from Dallas to retain another 50% of it, so 25% of it. Stars get the signing rights to goaltender Cole Brady in the deal. So that was the biggest trade up to this point, I would say. And yeah, that kind of indicates that Calgary is in sell mode, which is interesting because they have a couple of big names on this trade bait board, TSN's trade bait board. In the top 10 are both Noah Hannafin and Jacob Markstrom.
Yeah, I'm shocked to see Jacob Markstrom so low on that, just considering how many teams are really looking for goalies.
Yeah, well, I think what it is, why he's so low is because he's still got 2 years left. He's only on $6 million, and that's a good price for him. He's a stud. We understand that. 914 save percentage on the year. But I think why he's even on this trade bait board, because if you look down, everybody on this is either a UFA or a year left. There's not many guys with term that are really on the market. And they're just putting him in there because I don't think he wants to be in Calgary. He went to a Calgary Flames team. You have to remember this, that had Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, Hannafin. He was going to be there.
There was a team. I think Toffoli was there at that point.
Yeah, they were a contending team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was just traded? Lindholm
over
to Vancouver. Yeah,
Yep.
like they were a good hockey team a couple of years ago when he signed, like 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was. And I think that he's kind of over it. He's 34 years old. He wants to win. They're not in a position to win, and that's why he's there. 2 years left. I don't know what that trade would look like to get Markstrom at 2 years left, have him until he's 36 years old. You don't know if you're expecting a drop off or not there, but I don't know. I think that's really, really interesting. I think he's an interesting fit in different places. What do you think?
So I mean, when he originally signed in Calgary, I gave the Edmonton Oilers shit for not even like trying. Like they didn't even like bother like trying to sign him because he was a free agent when he left Vancouver.
Yeah.
So I think if the Oilers are serious about a push this season, like they have to get better goaltending. And if I were them, their first round pick is number 4 on the TSN trade bait board. It has to be in play to go and get a goalie. Just has to be.
Yeah, they look good. Their trade deadline acquisition of Ekholm from last year has paid massive dividends. Like that was a good pickup. You cannot argue that. He's been so good for them. Like he's been so good for them. Bouchard has developed into one of the better offensive defensemen in the National Hockey League. Like that's a good draft pick. They're actually building a team here. McDavid's gonna be. I think I saw the stat. He's on pace to be one of 4 players ever to break 100 assists in a season. Like he's just on another level in terms of his vision right now. They have Zach Hyman is like
40
got
goal
40
scores that
goals.
Hyman.
Like they still have Leon Draisaitl. I believe he just hit 30 yesterday. Like they seem to be humming right now. And Stu Skinner has been okay, but you don't want to rely on Stu Skinner come playoff time. You want to have a backup plan or a plan A and make Stu Skinner the plan B if you pick up a guy like Jacob Markstrom. I just don't know if they're going to go big fish hunting for goaltending because Skinner's been pretty good. Like that's.
But I mean, like it takes like one tweaked groin, and then you're just fucked. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but
Like,
I think you get
and the
more of a
thing,
backup plan for Skinner rather than getting a replacement for Skinner. I don't think you attack Markstrom in that case because then you're basically telling Skinner you're getting replaced if you bring in a guy like Jacob Markstrom, right?
well, I think you could make a very happy 1A 1B out of Markstrom Skinner.
Dude, Jacob Markstrom is the one there. You cannot even Jacob Markstrom is the one there. If I'm Edmonton, I'm actually looking for a guy like Jake Allen. That would be something that I'm more interested. A backup plan if something happens to Stu Skinner. That would be something that I would be looking for if I was the Edmonton Oilers. I don't think going big fish hunting in the net is a good idea for them.
And I still think like with the 2 years of term left still on Markstrom, like I think it's a more yes, it's like big game hunting, but it's also like more long term as well. Because if it works out, let's just say you make a conference final this year, it's like okay, now we just need to tweak a little bit because we have rock solid goaltending with Skinner and Markstrom, and you just have to tweak that little bit instead of kind of what they've been doing the last couple of years, where it's like needing to like full fucking rebuild almost. But you know what I mean? Like there's issues in goaltending, there's issues with defense. They finally sorted that out last year after how many years of us bitching, They finally started out getting some depth forwards after years of bitching. Like I think this would just maybe fit a longer term plan a little better.
Yeah, but the only thing that I have to say there is a long-term plan for me doesn't include 2 goaltenders that you're going to have to pay a lot of money, right? Especially when you're on a team that has McDavid on it. And so honestly, if they're looking at Markstrom, Skinner's got to go the other way. That's how it's got to be if you're looking at Markstrom. For me, you can't have that. You can't do that to Skinner, first of all. How good he's been for you all year. He was a Calder finalist last year. You cannot do that to Skinner. And I also don't think you can do that to Markstrom. I think both of those guys right now, the way they're playing, are 1As, right? Both of them. You need a 1B or a 2. A good 2. Like Jake Allen. That's what I see. Anyway, let's talk about some other teams that are kind of on the bubble here. Jake Gensel is number 2 on that trade bait board. I personally, at that at this $6 million cap hit, I don't know. I don't know what to make of Jake Gensel.
I mean, I don't know what to make of the Pittsburgh Penguins right now.
I think that's kind of what I mean.
Like, I'm just pulling up the standings here. Like, they're not like terribly out of like a wild card spot, but like they're just so inconsistent with their play. Like they're just, I mean, like 4-5-1 in their last 10 kind of sums it up perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just
in 4-5-1 at a time when they have to be better than 4-5-1.
Yeah. And it's hard because I know you gave me shit. I want to say it was over the summer last trade deadline. I was talking about the Penguins needing to rebuild, but like this is kind of, more kind of evidence of that. That as yes, it's shitty having Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Karlsson, and also saying, hey, like we need to blow this up and try again.
Yeah, looking back on it. Go ahead.
I would say that's just not something you want to tell those 4 players at this point in their careers.
Well, and looking back on it, that Karlsson deal doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Like they were not in a position where they were a Karlsson away from being competitive.
Yeah.
Come playoff time, anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen in Pittsburgh. Dubas did finally trade Nylander, though. I feel like we should mention that. After years and years of being harassed about it, Kyle Dubas did trade Nylander. It was just the wrong one.
Yeah. Yep, to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Emil Bergstrom. A 2026 sixth also went to the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are in hockey hell. So
I mean, I feel like that's
probably a good time for them to start thinking about accumulating picks because they're not going to be good anywhere close to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say Columbus is real world hell, so
Fair enough. Wow, going for the villain. I love it.
Any other names or draft picks on the trade bait board that catch your eye?
Yeah, well, a couple of them. Adam Henrique and Frank Vatrano, both Anaheim Ducks. Those are a couple of high-powered hockey players. Adam Henrique's got 41 points, 17 goals. And even more interesting to me is Frank Vatrano, who has 1 year of term left at $3.65 million. He's got 27 goals and 46 points in the 59 games that he has played, which is
I've always pretty poor Ducks team. Like they're not poor. Good.
Yeah, no, they're really, really not good. So those two names stick out to me a little bit. I don't, again, I'm not talking about for Toronto because we're not really in need at either of those positions, wing or center. One that does look interesting to me is Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba.
And you mean as in for Toronto, right?
As in for Toronto, yes. Because he's a UFA, 3.9 mil. Obviously, you can have the Arizona Coyotes eat some of that. They just broke a 14-game losing streak against the Ottawa Senators. Way to go, Ottawa. So yeah, that's a guy that I've always liked, going back to his Minnesota days. He doesn't have a lot of money on, like I said, UFA 3.9. I like that, and I like the fact that he's a right defenseman because we lack right defensemen, and because of that, we have to have guys like TJ Brody playing on their offside, and TJ Brody on the left side is like an 85 overall on NHL. TJ Brody on the right side is like a 75 overall on NHL.
Yeah.
Right? So when he has to play with Morgan Riley, they're both left shot defensemen. And we need right shot defensemen. So I think that having Matt Dumba would be beneficial. That would be adding another defenseman after adding Lyubushkin, who also plays the right side. But again, adding bodies to a position of need is never really a bad thing, especially if you don't have to pay too much for it. And him being a UFA, sorry.
No, I was gonna say when the Habs made their cup run, all of the trades that we made at the deadline were for just depth guys like Gustafsson and Merrill, who just you can just pull them off out of the fucking press box for a game or two when you needed them, and just Yeah, like you can never have too many of those guys for a playoff run.
Yeah, Matt Dumba hasn't been like electric this year like he has in years past. He's only got 9 points through 55 games. He is playing on a bad Arizona team, though. You have to remember that. And yeah, like you said, that's a plug and play guy right now. He's only 29 years old. Like, he's not ancient. And he hasn't completely forgotten how to play hockey. And I don't think he's as bad as Klingberg. So let's.
I mean, there's very few players in the league worse than Klingberg at this point.
I think that would make sense for Toronto. A guy like Matt Dumba, as long as you're not paying too much for him, like you don't want to give up, like I said, a prospect. Like Matt Dumba is not worth a first round pick or like a high end prospect. No way. No way. But
what about a Nick Robertson?
That's where I'm going. Like if you can do that, then you might consider that. That might be something that makes sense. You crunch the numbers, make sure that everybody's happy, and that might be something that makes sense. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying go do it. I'm just saying look at it, consider it, evaluate it, analyze it. That's all.
Do the due diligence. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's about all I see in terms of what I like for Toronto. Any surprises that you could see coming out of this trade deadline? Maybe Montreal specific.
I mean, the biggest surprise for me would be if, the deadline passed on Friday and we still have Primo, Montembeault, and Allen all on the books. I think one of them has to go. The market is there for it. We talked about it a bunch. I'm sure if it doesn't happen soon, someone with an hour left of the deadline is going to overpay for a goalie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my biggest shock is if the Canadiens have 3 goalies to rotate come Saturday night.
Yeah, do you see that maybe ending in a situation where people know that the Montreal Canadiens are not desperate, but they really should be getting rid of a goaltender, and that kind of decreases the price, so they end up not like really getting much for him and more or less just shipping the contract out?
No, because Kent Hughes has talked about how they're more than happy to keep all 3 goaltenders.
Okay.
Like he's been very open in saying like we're not in a rush to trade one. Like if the right deal doesn't come, like we're not going to make a deal. So I think, and that's kind of been his motto since taking over in Montreal, and it's thus far paid dividends. I would say really hasn't missed on any trades. So yeah, I think if nobody wants to pay the price, then like we're not just going to give away a goalie for free because we're having a shit season. Like we're not a charity. But yeah, I think there's enough quality in what we're offering, and we're going to assume it's Jake Allen. And there's enough of demand for that quality that I think that he'll go.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would assume of the 3, it would be Jake Allen. Just young team. You want to get rid of the guy who's 33 years old. He does have 1 year left of term at 3.85. Could you see them eating salary?
100%. I would have no issue with the Habs eating 50% of that. Like, especially with the cap going up, we're probably still not going to be super competitive next year. Next year, I'm kind of hoping is kind of the, challenge later into the season for a playoff spot. Probably won't get one, but you know what I mean? Like, get to the deadline and not be a total seller. Just be like a kind of, that would be the ideal. So I think, yeah, if you can eat salary on that, or if you have to eat salary to make that deal work, like not an issue.
Yeah, I think you would, just especially given the extra year left on the deal. Teams just don't want to commit to somebody for that long at the trade deadline, it seems.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are a couple other names that are interesting. Pavel Buchnevich, I've always loved. He's got 24 goals, 48 points this year. He does have a little bit of term left. Again, not for Toronto. Always loved that guy, though. Always thought that he was an impact player. Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens at this trade deadline. It's been eerily quiet, like in terms of rumblings of things. Like obviously you've heard the names Gensel, Hannafin, Sean Walker out of Philly. I don't really see why he's so interesting. Tarasenko's on this list.
Especially because Philly's having like a pretty decent season for what everyone was expecting from them. Like I don't see why they'd be huge sellers and sell something. Not that he's like key to them, but he's a pretty big player for them.
Exactly. I don't fully understand that. There are some middling teams though, or middling teams, I mean, like that are probably going to pay a lot of attention over the next week. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and yeah, see where they're at. I don't know how you change your opinion, but like that's the thing is there will be teams who change their opinion of their hockey team over the next week. And I don't understand how 1 week, either hot or cold, makes a determination on your entire season like that. Like whether or not you should be blowing up your organization or adding to it. Like that's crazy to me.
Well, and the other thing is, once the phone calls start ringing and you start getting offers, that also can change your mind really quick. Like if someone comes in and offers a first for Sean Walker, like who are the Flyers to say no to that, right? Like
that's fair. That's totally fair. All right. Is there anything that you needed to get off of your chest that we haven't spoken about to this point, Gitano?
I do not believe so. It's been a pretty quiet week in Montreal, quiet week in the hockey world outside those couple of trades we mentioned. I think that's just about it.
All right. What do the Habs have coming up?
So this week, the Habs have a bit of another tough one here. So we've got, we start with the Predators on Tuesday, the Hurricanes on Thursday, and then back at home against the Leafs on Saturday night. And I believe this is the week from hell for the Toronto Maple Leafs, is it not?
You are correct. So we play tomorrow, Boston Bruins at home. Then we host the Sabres. Then we fly to Boston and we play Boston. So it's, we play the Bruins tomorrow, Sabres Wednesday, Bruins Thursday. So we play the Bruins on the second half of back-to-backs. Good thing we have 2 goaltenders. So then we have 1 day off after that, and we play you guys on Saturday night in Montreal. That'll be
the last meeting of the season for us. No, we got one more. We're good.
There's got to be one more right at the end of the year. No.
April 6th.
April 6th. Okay, and that's also in Montreal.
Weird. I know we bitched about this when we did the season preview because we opened in Toronto, but how the fuck are we only playing 3 times this year?
Yeah, that's actually criminal, dude.
Makes no sense.
Criminal. So yeah, it is the week from hell in Toronto, but you know what? We're going into it hot, so I'm not too concerned. I would be happy with this week. I'd like to take 1 out of 2 at least against Boston. I'd like to take the Sabres, and I'd like to take you guys, obviously. I think we should beat both the Sabres and the Habs. But 1 out of 2 against Boston, and the other 2, I'd be happy with the week.
Do you have a score prediction for the Habs-Leafs game?
Score prediction for the Habs-Leafs game? I'm going to go 6-4 Toronto. It's going to be high score. No. 5-3 Toronto. We'll go 5-3 Toronto with an empty netter.
Okay, I'm going to go 4-3 Montreal overtime. Caulfield.
Okay. Caulfield. Wow. All right. This has been episode 118, powered by 91N. Thank you for listening or watching or however you consumed this episode of the Bitter Rivals podcast. We will talk to you next week after Leafs Habs.